Erica and I decided to do a 4-night, 5-day backpacking trip in Big Bend National Park from October 27th through the 31st. And then we did a couple extra days as well after that. We did the outer mountain loop in Big Bend National Park around the Chisos Basin. And then at the end, we also took a quick trip into Mexico. We did the outer mountain loop. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but essentially you combine the Dodson Trail, the Blue Creek Trail, and the Juniper Canyon Trail, and in the middle you do some hiking in the Chisos mountain range. To get to the trailhead, you have to take some back roads, some dirt roads that get bumpier and bumpier until you finally get to the trailhead. It took us about 40 minutes to drive to the trailhead from a paved road. For day one, it was pretty simple. We just drove to the trailhead and started our trek. We went about 8 miles or so until we found a campsite. It's zone camping, so you just find your own spot. And we set up camp. For day two, we started out at our campsite, packed up and got ready to go to finish up the Dodson Trail. We headed over to Homer Wilson Ranch where we had cached water, picked up our water, and then started up the Blue Creek Trail, and then went up and up and up and up until we finally got to our campsite, which was the Laguna West 3 campsite. Over the course of the day, we did more ascent than we had done in the Grand Canyon, going from the Colorado River all the way to the South Rim. At the end of day 2, we set up camp where we had a beautiful view of Emery Peak. For day 3, our plan was to hike down the Chisos Basin to a convenience store because we had to re-up our water. So we hiked down until we got to the convenience store, ended up carrying a little over 3 gallons back up the mountainside. And then we hiked up until we got to our campsite, which was the East Rim number 9 campsite. At the end of the day, we got to our campsite and enjoyed a beautiful sunset after setting up camp. For day 4, we had changed our plans around a little bit, and we started out at our East Rim number 8 campsite. Then we just hiked over a little over a mile to the South Rim, wandered around over there and enjoyed the views, spent some time and took some pictures. And then we headed back over to the East Rim, hiked around the East Rim, and then started down the Juniper Canyon Trail. After you go down the Juniper Canyon Trail, after a ways you get back into zone camping. And so we found a good place, set up our camp for the night, and went to sleep. Our final day of backpacking was pretty simple. We packed up camp at our campsite that we'd found the night before, and then we just headed down Juniper Canyon Trail about 3 miles until we got back to the trailhead where the truck was parked.
There's a pokey in me.
Yesterday, we were right up there. And then for our last day in Big Bend National Park, we decided to do a short hike. It's called the window hike. It's about 4.2, 4.3 miles round trip. It has a good view at the end. Then we drove around the park past Panther Junction, which is where you pick up your backpacking permits that you don't get on recreation.gov. Then we drove through the park and headed down to the Mexico border. And from there, you can cross the border and go into a little Mexican town called Boquillas, which is a tourist town, and spend some time there. Back here. Take a selfie.
A selfie?
To get into Mexico, you go down to the customs office and go through that, and you get down to the river, and some guys take you across the river on a boat so you don't have to get your pants wet. Pay them a couple bucks, and as soon as you're past there, you're into Mexico. Once you're in Mexico, you can get into town by walking, by paying somebody to drive you, or like we did, by riding some burros. Once you're in town, there's a couple restaurants and there's a bunch of people selling souvenirs. We had a guide, Thomas, who showed us around town while we were there. And then you head back down to the river on your burros. Cross the river again, and you're back into the United States. And then you have to go back through customs with your passports, which was a more involved process than getting out of the United States. And that ended our Big Bend trip, and we got in the truck and headed back to Dallas.